Hey everybody, Ron right here, and today I'm going to showcase the second version of my original Poison Tank build. So we can call it Poison Tank 2.0. It's pretty much will be adapted for Season 2 challenges, for stuff like Uber Lilith, Tier 100, and perfectly Abattoir of Zero that will be up pretty soon as well. Overall, most of the builds with rogues are pretty much close to each other, but there are like a few different changes that I wanted to showcase and pretty much focus on. So generally speaking, build currently is perfectly capable to clear all endgame content, including Uber Lilith, including Tier 100, and can clear pretty much everything without breaking sweat. It can tank almost all kind of damage right here and can adapt to all the challenges that the game pretty much throwing at it. Let's look into the build and see how exactly it gets to the numbers, what kind of defense measures we can use, and what we can use to amplify our damage. So talking about how the build works, it pretty much combines different mechanics to get where we should be in both damage and defensive measures. So overall, we're still using T-Bolt's Wheel together with Condemnation, since this season is pretty much the main trick for rogues to achieve the maximum damage. It pretty much works in the same fashion like Ball Lightning and can provide a lot of additional damage for all the builds, so even in the current situation I decided that it will be the best to still use it. It also pretty much utilizes X-Fall, which is really good for AoE clear, can provide lucky hit chance and stuff like this, and focus on a lot of damage reduction measures. That way we have about 13,000 of armor, together with capped resistances, together with dark shrouds, which I still think is pretty good to avoid one-shots, and a lot of additional thing. With crowd control from Twisting Blades, we can pretty much daze everything around us. And it works really good. We also invest in the knockdown and the debilitating toxins and stuff like that to stay alive pretty easily. On the items itself is stacked not only armor but also a lot of damage reduction, together with additional damage reduction for enemies that is crowd controlled, since with Twisted Blades we can pretty much crowd control almost everything on screen, and that way stay alive much easier. So, talking about the defensive measures, we are focusing on damage reduction together with armor, and offensive measures are pretty much Condemnation and T-Bolt's Wheel, which provides a lot, together with pretty good things such as Corruption, Aspect, and Aspect of the Blade Dancer, which is pretty much really strong. The build itself should be pretty flexible, so you can easily add items like Shako, Doombringer, Penitent Greaves, and stuff like that, and it will perfectly work with them as well. So let's look further into our skills to see what exactly we need to build to feel better in higher tier dungeons and other endgame content. So talking about our skills, I think the whole thing is pretty simple and works in the similar fashion as the previous Poison Tank build. So we are taking Puncture together with Fundamental Puncture, mostly to apply Vulnerable. So this is the main source here, and you will need to use Puncture all the time anyway. Moving forward, we are getting maximum points into Twisting Blades, and that's a pretty good option as well. I'm getting improved Twisting Blades mostly to daze enemies, since dazed enemies can pretty much attack us, and it works pretty good on boosting the survivability even further. I'm taking Sturdy right here, since it's an amazing source of damage reduction, together with Siphoning Strikes, which can heal us, and it's a pretty good option as well. I'm taking Shadow Step as a source of Unstoppable and source of Stun as well, so it should work pretty good. I'm taking Weapon Mastery, which is nice, together with Concussive, since we are knocking down enemies all the time, and Trick Attacks, since that way we can knock down enemies. I'm still using Dark Shrouds, even though if they're not really that amazing in terms of survivability, they still can help you to tank a few huge hits, and I think it's pretty much worth a few points here and there. So I'm getting Ken's Dark Shrouds together with Countering Dark Shrouds to boost critical strike chance a little higher when we have opportunity like that. I'm also using Smoke Grenade since I still think it's pretty much amazing. It's a proper daze for 4 seconds and you have only 10 seconds cooldown, so you can use it pretty often and it's a great source of crowd control when you need it. I'm also getting Enhanced Smoke Grenade since it's a really good damaging bonus and we are using Smoke Grenade anyway. In the passives I'm taking both Exploit and Malice. I think Malice pretty much fall down in terms of damage bonuses, but it still gives enough to justify putting 3 points in there. Moving forward, I'm using Poison Imbuement, which is obvious, together with Enhanced Poison and Mixed Poison Imbuement. I still think that Mixed Poison Imbuement works better because of the lucky hit chance that we are pretty much stacking everywhere. Since we are currently based on lucky hit chance and critical strike chance dropped a little, I think Mixed Poison should be a little better than Blended Poison, but both of them are perfectly viable and you can interchange them at any moment, since they both work. I'm getting 6 points to Deadly Venom since we're pretty much doing a lot of poisoning damage and our main damage is poisoning almost all the time. Debilitating Toxins is a pretty good bonus as well, since it gives us 15 less damage from enemies, and it's a really good source to stack our survivability even better. That was a main ability that created a poison tank as a build, and I think it should be taken in all the situations like that. I'm taking Alchemical Advantage for only 1 point, mostly to get sweet attack speed bonus when we are clearing tier 100 and stuff like this, so it should pretty much work good. Moving forward, I'm putting 3 points to the Innervation since we need that sweet energy, together with 2 points to Alchemist Fortune to get more lucky hit chance, which works really good together with Mixed Poison Imbuement, which pretty much requires lucky hit chance. And the last passive should be Close Quarter Combat, since that way we can pretty much use our Puncture as a form of Marksman skill, and Twisted Blades as a form of Cutthroat skill. That way we're pretty much receiving both the bonuses. If you still have troubles with survivability, you can swap Close Quarter Combat to the Momentum, since the previous version of Poison Tank used the Momentum in almost all the cases. I don't think that we need 20% of damage reduction that much right now, so Close Quarter Combats with more damage would be a really good option. However, if you still want more survivability, you can go with Momentum instead. Let's go further and look at our Paragon. So talking about our Paragon, we are currently using 6 boards instead of 7 since we just don't need that much additional bonuses. Let's look further into what kind of glyphs are we using. So right here at the start we're using Efficacy, mostly for additional bonus, but bonus damage and armor is pretty good as well. I'm also going through the left, getting Resilience right here, and getting Prime to the right as well, together with health, resistances, and going up. The next board is Cunning Stratagem. That way we can get Turf right here and a lot of STR to make our damage to close enemies higher. I'm also going up, taking Dominant and Denial too, since we need the resistances, to make sure our survivability is pretty much the best. The next board is to the left, and it should be Tricks of the Trade. The glyph here is Diminish, but I want to showcase that you will use Tear of the Blood exactly at that place. So when Abattoir of Zero will be on the server, and you will get Tear of the Blood, you need to put it exactly right here. So for now we are still using Diminish here, but when we will have access to Tear of the Blood, it should be placed there. So going up, I'm taking Brawler, and the next board is Chip Shot. The glyph here is Closer, since we are pretty much staying pretty close to the enemies. We are also receiving additional bonus, which can help with survivability, and our main skill is Cutthroat skill damage, so it should work pretty well. I'm taking all Oppress, Safeguard, Vials, Devious, Calculated, and Spearhead right here. I'm exiting through the top. So the next board should be no weaknesses, and the glyph here is control. Since control pretty much works really good with close quarter combat that we are using in the build, and that way we can receive a lot of additional bonus damage. Also, all the dazed enemies considered crowd controlled, so it should work pretty good as well. I'm taking both knowledge, training, and some intelligence around to boost control damage. Then I'm exiting through the right, and the next board is Larian Instinct. Right here we are going exactly for tolerance and getting some intelligence around here. The glyph here is canny, mostly for additional bonus, since basic bonus is good but not that amazing, but additional one is pretty alright. That way our Paragon can pretty much ensure that we'll have a lot of survivability with such stuff as Brawler, with additional bonuses against damage reduction from elites, from Safeguard, and stuff like this. We're also receiving a lot of armor, and we can boost it even further. As you can see, I pretty much missed some armor nodes like here and here. We can also spend 4 points going for Slayer right here for 250 armor, which is pretty good. So if you think that you need more armor, you can always do that. But right now I think the armor is pretty much in the really good position, and it should be enough for all the content, including up. So let's talk about our item set right here. Overall I'm trying to showcase it without the uber uniques, but please keep in mind that you can use Shako in terms of the helmet, and you can use Doombringer instead of that sword. It's pretty much obvious setup that almost all rogue builds are currently following, so both of those items will work perfectly in the Poison Tank 2.0. So let's look at what we will use if we don't have such uber uniques. First we are starting with the helmet, which pretty much uses Aspect of the Might, and it's obvious, it's cool, damage reduction bonus, and we are attacking with our basic attacks all the time. I'm also rolling like total armor, lightning resistances and life here. The cooldown reduction is not really perfect, you could aim for poison imbuement levels, but even like that it works pretty good. We're also receiving a lot of armor from it. Moving to our chest armor, we're pretty much using Aspect of Disobedience here, since it's still pretty good one. We are receiving total armor, maximum life, and different damage reductions right here, and it boosts our survivability really good, so make sure you will have armor here together with damage reductions. At the gloves, I'm using ranks of Twisting Blades, Lucky Hit chance, Critical Strike chance, and attack speed. I would say those are pretty good since we have a lot of different options, and I'm using Aspect of Shared Misery. There is an option to move Aspect of Shared Misery to the boots, and use another offensive one on the gloves instead, but I really like to go fast with the boots bonus, so I prefer to use Shared Misery on the gloves. And if you will need to choose on the stats itself, make sure you have Lucky Hit chance and Critical Strike chance. Attack speed is pretty much fine, even without the bonus on the gloves. As a pants we are using T-Bolt's Will, since currently T-Bolts is pretty much mandatory to boost our damage for the endgame content, and it can provide so much that it would be just strange to avoid it. I have used it in both my rapid fire build, you can check it on my YouTube account, and I'm using it here as well. So try to aim for maximum resource bonus like 20. I don't have a perfect ones, but if you have better numbers, make sure you are using them. We can also get a really good energy regeneration through the T-Bolts if we are using Metamorphosis or Shadow Step, and both of them are pretty much available to us. Moving forward, I'm using Ghost Walker Aspect on the boots, and I still think it's pretty much really good for movement, since 25% of movement speed is completely amazing. It feels so good to run fast, and I still prefer to use that and move Shared Misery to the gloves. You can drop it if you want, and use Shared Misery on the boots and move something offensive to the gloves, but I still prefer to use it. On the item itself, we are aiming for maximum evade chances, movement speed, energy cost reduction, and I think damage reduction while injured is a really good stat right now, especially for a build like Poison Tank. With this you can pretty much tank much better, so try to get it at least to 40, so it will help you to survive. At the crossbow, I'm using the aspect of Blade Dancer, since I think it works pretty good as the crossbow itself. That way we can deal damage even if there is like no poison involved, and it stacks pretty good with the T-bolts and condemnation bonus to the combo points. So on the crossbow itself, you should go for all stats, dexterity, core skill and damage to claws. Core skill is pretty much interchangeable, so just try to roll all stats, dexterity and damage to claws itself. At the amulet, I'm using the aspect of corruption, since it pretty much boosts our imbuement skills potency against vulnerable enemies, and since we are using puncture all the time, almost all enemies are vulnerable at all the time as well. So on the item itself, I roll movement speed, which is pretty important to go fast, total armor, energy cost reduction, and the last passive can pretty much vary. Right now I have Deadly Venom here, but almost any other passive like Weapon Master, for example, will work pretty good. So moving forward, I'm using Exfall. Even considering it's not that important, it's still a pretty good ring. It gives us all stats, damage over time, lucky hit chance and cooldown reduction. The only downside here is the way that we don't have critical strike chance here. Otherwise it works really good, so try to use it as well. On the second ring, I'm using the aspect of Bursting Venoms, which is pretty good way to work with cooldown reduction of poison imbuement, and the toxic pool itself can deal some kind of damage, I would say. On the ring itself, I'm rolling critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, damage to claws, and the last one can vary. You can go for health or damage over time or stuff like that. I'm using condemnation, which is pretty much obvious since it works together with the T-bolts, and that way we can do really huge damage. So make sure to use it as well. And always make sure that you are doing at least a few attacks with puncture to stack your combo points. The last item should be a sword, and the sword is using the Edge Master aspect, since I think Edge Master still works pretty alright. But you can use any other offensive one right here, since there are like so many different options. So use any that you like and it will pretty much work out great. On the sword itself, I'm rolling like all stats, damage to claws, and perfectly there should be a dexterity, but unfortunately I don't have a good sword with a dexterity here, so I'm using what I'm using. So if you want to add uber uniques, you can swap the sword to the Doombringer and you can swap the helmet to Shako. That way you will lose a little innate armor, but you will get much more damage and it will work like really good. And then about our specialization. Specialization is obviously combo points since we're using T-bolts and condemnation, so it should be combo points. So talking about Penitent Greaves, I think overall those boots are pretty much good for the build itself and could be used in some situations. I did a few different runs with this build, with Penitent Greaves and without them. You can pretty much see it in the video itself, since in my tier 100 run I use Penitent and in some other parts of the gameplay I don't. So if you like the boots, you can pretty much just use them. If you don't, you can pretty much drop them and use Metamorphosis and Unstoppable Ghostwalker boots instead. So both options are more than viable and will not change a lot in the build itself. So talking about the Vampiric Powers, there are like a lot of different options running around, but I'm going to showcase what I'm currently using and what will work in my opinion. So since it's a poison tank, I'm using Resilience. I think it's a really great way to get at least like 40 damage reduction, especially when you are injured. It works really good together with boots that we are using. They're guaranteeing damage reduction while injured, and you're getting additional one from Resilience. I think it works really good in synergy, and we can get a lot of damage reduction while we don't have health. So I'm using Undying since it's probably the best way to heal right now. You can heal just by standing in place and attacking with puncture pretty fast, and it will work amazingly good. I'm also using Ravenous since I think Ravenous right now is probably the strongest vampiric power. especially for the character like Rogue. We have a lot of movement speed, and we can get huge, like 60% attack speed bonus. So overall, we can move to next Vampiric Power, which should be Flowing Veins. Flowing Veins is a really good way to increase our damage over time, and I really like it. The only thing that should be considered that we need to inflict the enemies with Vampiric Curse. That way we can use a Curse Touch right here, or the Metamorphosis. I still prefer Metamorphosis mostly to get Unstoppable more often, to get bonuses from Unstoppable such as energy from T-Bolt Wheel, and I think we can pretty much inflict Vampiric Curse with Metamorphosis. However, if you want more passive approach, you can just go with a Curse Touch. So Metamorphosis itself, I think it's a really good option. It gives us way to move faster, to get Unstoppable, to pretty much get resources and stuff like that. So if I would change something, I would probably drop Flowing Veins and get Prey on the Weak instead in. And there's also an option to use a Moonrise. Since we are attacking with Punch all the time, we can get movement speed bonus, we can get basic skill damage and stuff like that. So overall, if you feel like your survivability is enough, you can pretty much get rid of Resilience right here and use Prey on the Weak instead. And you can interchange Metamorphosis together with a Curse Touch if you want to. The other option would be adding Sanguine Brace instead of Resilience to get some Fortify and to get some critical strike chance, but I still prefer Resilience overall. And if you want to drop Flowing Veins, you can use Moonrise instead. However, current setup should be really good in my opinion and should showcase really nice speed together with decent damage. So in the current meta, Poison Tank can pretty much showcase a pretty good result in the same fashion as it was in Preseason and in Season 1. It's still very strong and can take out Uber Lilith without any issue, it can clear tier 100 without any issue as well. I think it will be really strong in Abattoir of Zero as well. So right now it's a perfect moment to play that build, since there are like a lot of different stuff that works really good for it, especially with the new Vampiric Powers. And I think in the current position it's pretty much stronger than ever. Thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed the build. Feel free to like and subscribe to the channel for more Diablo 4 and Path of Exile content, and see you next time!